Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to paint a still life in gouache, and I am using an image from the Food Paint Challenge on Instagram, and I will link that down below if you want to go check it out and maybe take part yourself. I started off by masking a square off in my sketchbook, and I'm sketching with a red col erase pencil. And this is an erasable colored pencil, which is nice. So if I do make a mistake and want to erase my lines, I can. But it's not a very waxy pencil, and I know my gouache is going to stick on top of this just fine. I'm also trying out a new gouache today. I'll be using the Art Whale gouache, and that is available in several different size sets as well as open stock on Amazon, and it's pretty affordable, honestly. It comes in 50 ml pots, and the pots have lids on them, which is unusual. I don't know of any other jelly gouache company that's offering jelly gouache with the lids, and I think that's a good idea because when you take the main lid off your palette, all of your paint's exposed to the air. But if you have the Art Whale set, they all have lids on them, so you can just take off the lids of the colors you need. And what I do is actually pull some of that paint onto my little mixing palette here, so I don't even have to leave the lids off of the paint, which is very handy. And so while I'm working, I have the big lid off of my set, but I have the little lids on each color, and I can just take off that one color as needed and put the color on my palette and go from there. And I don't have to worry about contaminating my paint. And I will have a full review on this paint on my YouTube channel in the future if you're curious, but I'm really enjoying it. And I've been in kind of a funk lately, and sometimes when you're in a funk and you go to paint something, if there's anything wrong with the materials, you'll just be so irritated by the time you're done that you will just hate using that material. And I had absolutely no problems with the materials. It was very easy to paint with. The colors mixed very well, and they were very vibrant and matte, and I was very happy with this and quite surprised, honestly. I found them to be much more opaque and much more pigmented than the Mia Himi gouache, which is probably the most popular jelly gouache brand. It was very similar to a brand that I really enjoy called Anagani, but Anagani doesn't have the lids for each color, so this is even better in my opinion. But I started to think about different ways I could use this, and I actually painted on some little wood ornaments, and it had great coverage on that too. So I think this is a really versatile paint. I just love the fact that it has lids. And of course, if you have any other jelly gouache, go ahead and use that. You don't have to go get this just because you learned about it. If you're painting on white paper, I'm sure the Mia Himi is going to work just as well. But if you want to paint on something that was toned, or you want to make sure you can layer up, an more opaque gouache is a good idea. But I'll have a full review on this if you want more information, but I really like it. I really like it. That's the Art Whale gouache. I'll link to everything in the video description as well. Most of the brushes I'm using are the Zen All Media brushes by Royal and Langnickel. They're my pick when it comes to gouache or acrylic because they're pretty easy to find. They're very affordable. They run about, I would say, around $3 to $6 a brush. And they're very durable. I've been using this set of brushes. I had a bunch of them. I just have them in a jar, and I use them several times a week, and I've been using the same batch for about 3 years, maybe more, and they're all working really well. I mean, I have had to replace a couple small rounds, but man, they've really held up well, and so I recommend them. You know, I like a well-priced, high-performing brush. So for the metal here on the mocha pot, I'm actually just chunking in the colors. If you look at the reference photo, which I apologize, I know it's not very big on my phone, but I will link to the post on Instagram so you can check it out. If as you're looking at that, it's very chunky, you know, your highlights, your reflections. Now, there's a different background on the reference photo, so I've got to keep in mind that I'm going to need to throw some red reflections in there to make it make sense. But for the most part, I'm going to follow what the picture is, you know, just to get my values and whatnot. I wanted to use red because there's some really pretty reds in the set, and red's my favorite color. And plus, I was feeling kind of angsty, I guess, so having some red in there, maybe. And honestly, I think with the mocha pot, I was probably fiddling with it too much. This took about 40 minutes to paint, and I probably could have done it in like 30 or maybe even 25 if I didn't fiddle around so much. But I haven't used gouache in a while, and probably like a couple weeks. So, you know, you get out of practice. If you're doing something every day, then you get real quick at it, and I'm just kind of out of practice. and I was kind of in a mood. So the colors I'm using are Scarlet and Crimson, and I used Prussian Blue, and I made my black with Prussian Blue and Burnt Umber. I also had a little bit of this cocoa brown color, but I don't think that was really necessary because that's more of a convenience color of like burnt sienna and white. I have some yellow ochre and titanium white, and the colors mixed really well. I didn't have any mud. I didn't have any mud other than like the neutrals that I was mixing on purpose, like to get grays and whatnot. And it was a pleasurable experience. Honestly, it didn't. I didn't get irritated. I didn't get aggravated, which was quite some feat because I've been feeling very irritated and aggravated lately. So the fact that this did not give me any undue stress is probably a very, very good point, good selling point for this gouache. But I kind of like using a flat brush when I'm using gouache. I feel like you can just simplify a design a little bit more and manipulate the paint and sculpt with it, kind of. Painting with gouache feels a little bit like sculpting because you can manipulate stuff. Like I have the ellipse wrong there, but I can keep pushing it out and pulling it in until I have it the way that I want it. The mug on the reference photo is a bit squared off on the bottom. I wasn't sure if I was going to go with that or if I was just going to turn it into more of a cylindrical mug. And I kind of landed more on the cylindrical side. But yeah, artistic license, man. You can do whatever you want to do. That's what's great about painting, right? You can make those choices. I left the background pretty simple just by streaking in some of the, I used both of the reds and then I added some Prussian blue into the red to get my darker shadow. Since Prussian blue is not a very vibrant red and it has kind of green undertones, it tends to neutralize the red really well. It makes a really nice, almost velvety shadow, and I thought that worked out really well. And you can always go in after everything's dry and add really bright highlights if you want to on things, but I didn't really need to do too much. It was a pretty much an alla prima easy painting. The gouache that I'm using, the Art Whale, it comes in a big set of 42 basic colors, and then there's a set that's got classic colors as well as metallics. But then they have these 9-color sets that would give you like the basic color 9-color set has like a full split primary palette and burnt umber and a couple other secondary colors. No white though, but it is a really nice selection if you want to just start with a limited palette. And they have open stock. So I think this is going to be, as far as the jelly gouache goes, a really good company to consider if you were thinking about picking some up. The cups are 50 mLs, which is your standard tube of gouache is usually 15 mLs. So it's more than 3 times the size of like a standard tube of gouache, which I think is pretty impressive. And the fact that you can get it open stock, and one open stock pack of 2 of the cups is less than a lot of single tubes of gouache. So granted, there's no pigment information or anything like that. It's definitely more of a student grade product, and I have no idea light fastness, although I think I will do a light fast test on these just to see, because it would be nice if these didn't fade and I can use them for more than sketchbook work. I'm just very impressed with them. And I'm just kind of putting some finishing touches on. This is like the next day, I think. And I'm darkening up some of my blacks, which is again Prussian blue and burnt umber. And I'm sketching in the little mocha pot guide that was on the side, but I'm keeping it very loose because I don't want to have something really detailed smack dab in the middle of the painting, or that would be kind of just grab your eye and then be not great for the composition. So I just kept that really loosey-goosey, and I'm probably fiddling a little too much, but I do need to get some sharp highlights in there to give it a little bit more definition and form, because it's a little bit wonky and soft on the edges. So just trying to refine that a bit with some sharper highlights. And that's when I go into the smaller brushes, because I don't want to be putting down a ton of paint at this stage of the game. I just want to be putting in just those little crisp details and kind of finishing it up so I don't overwork it. And I feel like I might have overworked it a little bit on the mocha pot because I'm a bit out of practice with gouache, but all in all, I think it turned out pretty well. Not bad for a sketchbook painting, I don't think. Putting in some of the really bright shine on the coffee mug there with the straight white. A lot of times I will add some color to the white. Usually titanium white is very cold in your water-based media, because like with the oil paints, titanium white is neutral because you've got the oil that has a bit of a yellow to it that kind of neutralizes that cool yellow. But in like gouache or acrylics, I noticed the titanium white is quite cold. So I'll usually add a little touch of yellow ochre in it to warm it up. And it makes it, I don't know, look a little bit more realistic and not so discordant. Sometimes a bright white highlight, especially if it was like on the croissant, a bright white highlight might look a little too artificial. And there, remove the tape and take a look and see how it is. Sometimes I like to decorate my sketchbook pages and put like swatches along the top or write notes, things like that. I think it's kind of a nice way to just add a little bit of character. I might write the date or what challenge this was a part of, if it was, or if I took a photo somewhere, write the location, that sort of thing, just to finish it off. But that's a great thing about working in a sketchbook. It's no consequence type art. You don't have to make it great. If it doesn't turn out great, nobody has to see it. And it's something, you have something to show for your time, basically. And I encourage everyone to work in a sketchbook. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.